So it's like if you ask someone, oh, let's go get a coffee, don't start asking them to marry you or go to like travel with you. It's just like kind of overkill it. So just kind of stick to the point. Let's just go get coffee and get it done.
Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Marketers of the Universe. My name is Hayden Woods-Williams. I'm a digital marketer here at Brew Digital. Our topics today are pretty diverse. We have a discussion around how your brand can use owned data to create your own version of Spotify Wrapped. We've got a little look at how best to empower your digital marketing teams, and we take a quick look at whether or not the marketing qualified lead is well and truly defunct. As usual, we'll take about 5 minutes to discuss each topic and try and give you at least one action that you can go away and implement today. So, without further ado, let's get on with the podcast. I'm Hayden, and these are the Marketers of the Universe. Our first topic today looks at roles within digital marketing teams and how you can build your own high-performing digital marketing team. Our panel today is Mark Bendel, Debbie Gakvitan-Jardins-Oliveira, and Rich Harper. Mark has worked in email marketing for almost a decade. Here at Brew, he predominantly looks after our email marketing and CRM, and he's your go-to guy when it comes to anything on mythology or fantasy. Hey, Mark.
Hey.
We've also got Debbie. Debbie is a seasoned social marketer with a diverse background in the tech and education sectors. She is a creative strategist, always driving to nurture dynamic online communities, and has recently been heavily involved in spearheading advocate programs for the Adaptivist Group, one of our major clients. Hey, Debbie.
Hey, Hayden.
And finally, we have Rich Harper. Rich is our head of digital marketing. He previously owned a digital agency, and he's passionate about putting people first. He has over 16 years experience and is focused on helping companies realize their ambitions and try and achieve sustainable growth. Good to have you with us, Rich.
Here's Hayden.
So just to get things kicked off, one of the most popular ways to structure a marketing team is structuring by specialism. Obviously here at Brew, that's how we split out the team. What do you think the benefits or negatives of structuring a team this way are? And I'm going to start with you, Rich, because you've obviously been involved in setting the team up.
Interestingly, when I came on board with the team, we were structured slightly differently in the fact that we had a paid media team, we had a social media team, we had an SEO team. And to a part, we still have those teams, but operationally, those teams were working fairly independently from one another. A big thing that I wanted to implement when I came on board was more collaboration. I think you can only do that together, and those channel experts can provide the input we need per channel, but the kind of sum of all parts is far stronger than any individual.
Yeah, I agree. Debbie, obviously, your focus is social media. Do you find that working in the way that you do, you're able to collaborate with other specialisms in the most effective way?
I think this goes back to how your organization is structured. I think that here at Brew Digital, we are in an interesting period because we still are quite specialized, but at the same time, we do have pod system wherein there are different specialists in one team working on a specific brand. There are two sides to it, I feel. I feel that as a specialist, you do have that deep knowledge and experience, which also helps you to work on a task more efficiently and faster. But at the same time, I do see the benefit of working as a team because you do see a more holistic view. For instance, rather than just working on this alone, I have a shared goal with the paid media team, with email, with SEO. And with that, we can collaborate more and communicate better in terms of what's the best tactical approach for that particular brand.
And Mark, I know that you've worked in agencies for a big part of your career. Do you see a difference working with teams who are structured around product compared to teams that are structured around brand, compared to teams that are structured around growth? Do you have a preference on what you like to work with or work within?
Yeah, I'm going to be annoying and go for neither of those. And I think it's the way the team was set up originally and has developed a bit more and is kind of resetting now. I'm going to earn some brownie points and quote our CEO. The silos are actually good things. It's where you keep your valuable stuff. But it's where the crossover between those comes. So we had our channel specialists, but we also then hired a couple of people to be generalists that could work across the different teams. And not only does that bring new insights, it can bring better communication between different channels. It also gives you some contingency as well, which I think is really important for a top team, that there are people there that can fill gaps if people are out unexpectedly.
Debbie, I saw you put a face there. Do you agree?
No, I completely agree. It was an interesting thing joining Brew Digital and the Adaptivist Group because of their view of silos. Because I think if you ask other marketers in the industry, everyone would be running away from a silo system. I think the key here is you can be a silo, but you need to know how to be flexible and when is it to step out of a structure and when is it right to be in a structure. And that really depends on, as an agency, the goal that you're trying to achieve with the brand that you're working for.
I think also what we're missing there is how that team is led. Silos can work, collaboration can work when teams are given an autonomy and empowerment. When silos don't work is when they're being micromanaged. You potentially have one ego that's stronger than another that is pulling in one direction and not allowing the team to work as a unit. I would even say, touching there on things like egos and stuff like that, you could have one of the most high-performing people in the room. If they've got an ego and are having a negative impact on the rest of the team are struggling for that one individual, I would say get rid of that one individual for the benefit of the rest of the team. You've got 6 or 7 unhappy people and one high-performing person. That's a kind of toxic situation.
Being the devil's advocate a little bit, I'm an owner of a growing business who's maybe making their first or second marketing hire. How do I know whether to trust someone? Surely trust is earned.
There's keeping an eye, and then there's like micromanaging people. If you're hiring them, you've already met them, you've had that conversation, you've got the start of a relationship that you feel that you can trust someone. You can see from their experience what they've done, how they've performed, and potentially you've checked their references. End of the day, if you're the business owner, you're probably not a marketer. Your clever idea is whatever it is, and that's your speciality. And let your marketer be a marketer. It doesn't mean they shouldn't be accountable, but it means that you need to give them the trust to do the thing you've asked them to do.
I can share a negative experience. I have employed people where it hasn't gone to plan, and it's a lesson learned, and you can't always get it right. On the one hand, you get that one individual that has lied on their CV or has really impressed you in the interview phase. And then when it comes down to the crux of it, they're just not capable. For every one of those, there's 3 or 4 people on the other side that are capable, that are good, and they will thrive given the right environment.
How do you cultivate that culture, especially if you're starting from nothing or you're starting from 1 or 2 people?
The tone of your culture of the company is set by the leadership, and that trickles downwards. If it is a very micromanaged, toxic environment, there's no other way to look where that began, like who's sitting at the leadership team. The culture and, the structure of a team, what is needed, it really depends. And you need to have regular assessment and regular check-ins, because it's what can work right now may not work in 5 years' time. A good example for that is when the pandemic came.
Culture can't be forced in an organization. I've been in places before where the leadership come up with values and culture, and it's almost like they're ticking a box, like, this is what we want our business to be like, here's our values. But then they don't live their life by that culture or values. So guess what? The rest of the organization don't either. It's really crucial when we talk about culture that it has to come from the top, but it has to be a natural thing for them. It can't be forced. It cannot be constructed, because people will just not follow it.
And the plus side of that is, if you are a small business and you're worried about culture because it sounds really scary, good news. Be yourself. Be what you want your company to be. If you start it at the beginning, it's so much easier, and it's just there and embedded rather than having to be forced later on.
At the end of the day, culture takes a long time to embed. Creating a new team takes time. How can a listener go away right now and implement something today that is going to start the ball rolling?
Listen to your team. if you're a business owner or, you're the marketing director or whatever position that you are in, listen to your team, speak to them, ask them how they like to be managed, how they like to be communicated to, how often do they need that kind of meeting cadence. We are kind of especially in that situation where we have to listen and communicate because we're a remote business. We're not in the office together. There's none of that kind of visual cues to know if someone's down or not. So it's kind of inbred into us as a culture to check in and make sure that everyone's okay. So the one big tip from me is listen, ask and listen.
Adding to that as well, I'd say if you're hiring to an area that you're not sure on yourself and you've got a choice between a candidate with the skills and a candidate you trust, hire for trust. You can teach skills, especially in a small business. You need to make sure that that's someone you can work with and get on with in the long term.
Topic 2 touches a little bit on CRO, touches a little bit on all the different digital marketing channels, and is a really core piece of any digital marketing campaign. We're looking at landing pages and asking the question, do you really need to spend time on making your landing pages better? We are bringing Mark back. We've also got Nasya joining us. Nasya has worked in B2B tech marketing for 3 years with clients such as SAP, Plume, Sonigo, and the Adaptivist Group. We also have Ross Stratton. Ross has worked in digital agencies for around 5 years with brands such as Vitabiotics, Skyscanner, Emirates, and Adaptivist as well. Ross recently did some CRO work on one of our clients and managed to improve lead volume by, I think, around 45% just with a few landing page changes. Good to have you with us, Ross.
Hello.
And finally, we have Selfie Noor. Selfie has worked in social media marketing for around 4 years, starting in a B2C agency with clients in fashion, beauty, F&B, and electronics and gadgets. He loves reading and traveling and has literally just got back from Korea. So I'm hoping he can get a reference in there somehow. Hello, Selfie.
Hi, Eden. Nice to be back.
Going to start with something that's maybe a little bit dependent on the specialism. And we've obviously got 2 people here working in paid, one in email and one in social. Do you think we're wasting time trying to optimize web pages, or do you think it's vital to what we do in digital marketing? I'm going to start with Ross on this one, if that's okay.
Yes, is the simple answer. Landing pages are such an opportunity to kind of showcase a brand or product, and it's so easy for good brands or good products to fall short when they have terrible landing pages. Yeah, I think the primary benefit of kind of optimizing web pages or landing pages is improving the conversion rates, which is kind of the primary goal that we're driving traffic to a landing page is to convert. And I think people would be surprised at how much impact small tweaks around things like improving the UX or shortening conversion pathways can have.
Whether it's Google, Facebook, Bing, business will definitely benefit massively from having a singular targeted page that kind of boasts the benefits of your product and service. It all comes down to the user intent. For example, when we create ads on Google, typically users clicking on a specific ad, they have a specific intent due to the keywords that we choose to target. Because of this, visitors are expecting a piece of immediate information or some kind of transaction. We definitely need messaging to be clear from the moment they land on those pages, ideally within the first fold of the landing page or the headline. And one common mistake that I keep seeing is that there's a disconnect between the ads and the landing page copy. So I definitely feel like landing pages for ads specifically need to maintain the same kind of messaging and offer some form of continuity from the ad.
A good landing page is a landing page that converts. As you said, it has to follow through nicely from the ad. It has to be a proper user journey, a proper experience for people. But at the end of the day, you're getting people to your site to do something. Unless it's a pure branding base, which is relatively rare, you want people to B2B download a white paper, submit a contact form. B2C, you want them to buy that pair of trainers or that piece of equipment. Good landing page needs to make sure that it does follow all the way through from the good ad copy through that landing page, which then helps it move through the funnel by offering clear, relevant CTAs to get people to then actually take the action you want them to take.
And do you think an effective landing page for email will be the same as an effective landing page for SEO would be the same effective landing page for paid, as an example?
If they're being driven from the same message, I don't see why not. If an email is trying to drive you to a place and an ad has the same message and is trying to drive you to a place, I don't see why they can't share a landing page, as long as it is the same thing. If they're driving different messages, you want to make sure that you're tailoring the page to the message. If you're doing things like dynamic content or interactive elements in an email where things are tailoring to the audience, depending on their past interaction with you, then yeah, you're probably going to need a different landing page for that, because you're going to want to be able to tailor it to those needs as well.
I guess people, with the attention span they have today, if something doesn't make sense, the easiest thing to do is run away.
Yeah, last thing you want to do is make them bounce.
Do you think it's important that companies should be testing their landing page performance? And how can someone who doesn't have an Amazon or Google or Apple size budget do that efficiently?
I think the important thing to kind of understand about landing pages is that they're never finished. There's always kind of small tweaks you can make or content you can update to improve things. And testing shouldn't really be something that's exclusive to kind of big brands and big budgets. Templating tools these days make it so much easier, where you can just kind of duplicate pages, swap something out and run them side by side. And it's important to test because there's always something to improve. And as long as the traffic volume is there, you'll be able to assess fairly easily whether you've improved things or not.
Cool. And just because we are quickly approaching the end of our timer, I'm going to do a very, very quick two-stop, two-start when it comes to landing pages. Let's start with Nasia. Are you going for a start or a stop?
A stop.
Stop. Go on. What should someone stop doing when it comes to landing pages right now?
When it comes to the form fields, there's such a thing as like too many. Think about just the necessary information that you need. Stop when it gets to more than 4 fields.
Selfie, do you want to start or stop?
I think I'll do start.
Cool. Go ahead. What are we starting when it comes to our landing pages?
Keep in mind that when people already get to your landing page, just start reminding yourself that means they already have the interest. So don't oversell it. So it's like if you ask someone, oh, let's go get a coffee, don't start asking them to marry you or go to like travel with you. It's just like kind of overkill it. So just kind of stick to the point. Let's just go get coffee and get it done.
How many people did you ask to marry you in coffee shops in Korea?
So far, no, I stick to it. Coffee and that's it. I don't even drink coffee, hot chocolate and that's it. Yeah.
Start or stop, Mark?
I'll say start, and it's something that people should already be doing really. But start considering your user journey from beginning to end, all the way through from who you're contacting, how, through that landing page, and making sure it's relevant and onto a relevant CTA to make sure you're getting the conversion that you're looking for.
Very, very brief, very succinct. I like it. And finally, I think you have a stop, Ross. What are we stopping?
We are stopping filling web pages with mountains of text that no one will ever read.
Our third topic today, and we are 2 weeks from the predicted release date of Spotify Wrapped. My prediction is this will be released on the 29th of November. Depending on when we release this could be in the past or the future, who knows? But how can brands use their own data to sell a story? So we're looking at that Spotify Wrapped campaign and looking at how we can recreate that success. Spotify Wrapped is massive. And with us today, we have Freya Wilcox, Debbie, rejoining from our first panel, Ross rolling over from panel 2, and our superstar special guest, Kieran O'Neill. Kieran's worked in marketing and account management for over 10 years, specialized in taking campaign strategies and products from concept all the way through to delivery. He's also a petrol head. Good to have you with us, Kieran.
Happy to be here.
We also have Freya Wilcox. Freya is a recent university grad who has been the QA of every single thing that we do over the last few months, constantly picking out the mistakes that we have overlooked, which has meant she has become indispensable to the team. Sadly, she does have to leave in January to go travel the world. Good to have you with us, Freya.
Hi, good to be here.
Let's kick things off. Firstly, we know that Spotify Wrapped has been a massive success. So many brands, Strava, Monzo, Tesco, have all kind of followed that model of providing customers with a roundup of their usage data. Why does it work so well? Let's start with Kieran.
I think what Spotify nails is making the end user feel part of something when they see the marketing, which just naturally increases the engagement.
Part of the reason that the Spotify Wrapped has done so well is that it kind of gives users an insight into what data they're collecting, but giving it back out to them and in a much less daunting way. And yeah, I think Tesco's did the same sort of thing, like with their Tesco's Unpacked, showing people what like other people were purchasing, if they were purchasing the same meal deals. I'm not sure how happy I'd be to see a Monzo Wrapped and see all my spending, but I'd be happy to see my meal deals.
I guess it ultimately relies on us as customers and consumers being slightly self-obsessed. Debbie, do you have anything to add there?
I think that building that emotional connection to the brand all stems down as a user. You feel that you've been seen and valued. If we use Spotify as an example to this, Spotify has also taken it to the next level of filming different artists, sending a message. So just imagine that you have been listening to this artist for most part of the year. And then here you get also a message that you feel like it is directed to you. So it's that total experience as a fan, as a user, and somebody who enjoys the music that I think Spotify just nails. They have the data, but they take it to the next level and they build a story out of it as well.
Nice. Story is such an important word there. If you're a smaller brand, what can you learn from what these companies are doing? How can you go and implement that in your own marketing? Ross, this one's for you.
Yeah, so I think it kind of demonstrates that maybe an element of personalization is key. I think the future will kind of have video creative that's very much tailored to people's content that might include a name or what they've been doing that day, which is slightly daunting thought. But I think for us now in 2023, it feeds into the creatives we can run. We can have images that tailor to your audience. That might mean drilling down into one specific pain point that customers have and having a tagline based on that. And I think that's what's most likely to resonate with your audience.
I guess ultimately for B2B companies, and particularly those who are working in the tech or SaaS industry, you have a lot of data on your customers. How can brands take that unique data and turn it into something that customers and prospects want to engage with?
I want to say that this doesn't only apply to B2B, but going back to your question with smaller brands as well, which is basic 101 of marketing is data. 10 years ago, we've already been using data. The only change that has happened right now is Spotify decided to give that data back to the user and actually turn a story out of it. So for everyone, B2B, smaller brands, big brands like Spotify, it's really like looking into those insights, tailoring messages, tailoring your offering and content around it and giving it back to your customers. I wanted to see a bit more creativity in terms of how we tell success stories or unique user journeys, for instance. One thing that you can find to big tech companies or B2B, sometimes case studies can turn out very flat. You just land on a website, see who they've worked with, and just see white papers. This is a chance for them to bring it to life using much more creativity, data insights, and really bring it back.
Because we live in the age of GDPR. I think the first step that most brands need to be looking at is ensuring that your customers have signed up or there is an agreement within the data usage so that it can actually be used in a similar way to Spotify. Sometimes this is just my opinion, but it may not work for every single brand or every single industry because it needs to be relevant from that industry perspective. I would probably look at starting at a goal and working backwards, the why and then the how, to see if it is relevant.
There's only so much knowledge. I don't want to know that I've downloaded 87 ebooks this year and that I've only read 2 of them, as an example. That's just data that, frankly, I don't really care about, right?
Yep.
We've obviously looked at attracting new customers using this data, but one of the big data points that Spotify Wrapped caused in 2020 was an increase of Spotify downloads of 21%. Is there a lesson in this on how to reignite lapsed customers or customers who are maybe less engaged than they were 6 to 12 months ago?
I think one thing Spotify does from a social media point of view is that it's a very shareable campaign, and I think it definitely instills a sense of competition between users. My sister listened to, I think, something like 66,000 minutes of music, which was insane. And In my house last year, only one person didn't use Spotify. And then after Spotify Wrap came out, everybody used Spotify because they were jealous of seeing other people's Wrapped and seeing how people could see their own data. And the sense of competition between Spotify users is a very good way of getting people to sign up, because people like to see what data is being collected on them.
How do we make that not creepy?
I personally think it comes down to timing. I think if Spotify Wrapped launched in March, what? Why? Spotify Wrapped is so successful. It's a mix of the brand awareness, the product itself, and the cost of entry, but it's also the time of year. It's that perfect mix of personalization, shareability, and seasonality.
It just basically, follows the natural stage of, life, I would say. At the end of the year, you become more reflective. You look at your achievements, you look at what you've been able to do this year, and Spotify just basically serves it up to you with like what you've achieved within Spotify. I think going back to your question, Hayden, in terms of like, how does this call out to those that have fallen out of the bandwagon? For those other users, it's basically, you see everybody doing it. So you feel like that sentiment of like being part of the crowd, but at the same time, also give insight to like the features that they offer.
Annoyingly, I had wanted to discuss their offline campaigns as well, but we haven't got enough time, so I'm going to skip over that. Is there anything that someone who is listening could go and do right now that would help them in maybe one day creating a campaign as effective as Spotify Wrapped?
If they ensure that the content that they would produce for this particular type of campaign, they need to make it as shareable as possible. So you build it out as part of the natural part of the website or the app or the customer portal, whatever it is. But you ensure that it's, just as a side note, you ensure that it's something that the customer can choose to engage with. It's not a takeover. And I think doing that ensures that you're building the structure needed to be able to then create that campaign. And it also means that you can do other things with that structure as well.
Fun fact, Reddit has actually been doing kind of a Reddit recap much earlier than Spotify started doing their end of year wrap. So as a brand, is there anything that you're doing right now that you can be building on? Are you being too relaxed with your campaigns because they already work? All of us are collecting data at the moment. We do know our audience hopefully well. Maybe you don't have to make it as big as Spotify Wrap, but you can start small. For instance, if you have partnerships right now, maybe you can start off by sending out badges to your partners based on like who is the best partner of the year, and making sure that that partner, incentivizing them to share that on social. So something as small and granular as that can help you already get that personalization, that emotional connection that you can do whether you are a B2C or B2B brand.
On to our final topic. This topic is one that has caused a lot of interest in the digital marketing team here, but has a lot of people hesitant to get involved and discuss it. But we have three of our team who have been happy to get stuck in. We have Kieran joining us and giving us a slightly different perspective. He works on our account management team, so he does see these leads sometimes. We've got Rich, obviously from the head of perspective, and we have Mark from an email and CRM perspective as well. So a really, really good spread of opinion here. So we're asking, is the traditional MQL funnel broken? And for anyone who doesn't know what an MQL is, it's a marketing qualified lead. It's something that marketing teams are often measured on. Rich, I know this is something that you have a strong opinion on.
I do have a strong opinion on this because essentially MQLs are just, and I say that laughing as a marketer that is measured on MQLs. The reason why I say that is for the past however many years, we keep getting told that we need to be more aligned. Sales and marketing need to be more aligned. That's the secret to success. And yet in 2023, we're still being measured on completely separate KPIs. The sales team are screaming out, we need more leads, we need more leads. So the marketing team, they go out, they get more leads. And what happens is, no one's focused on the quality of this lead. It's the marketing team going, well, you asked for leads, we got you loads of leads, so that's our job done. Rub our hands off. The sales guy's sitting there going, but our conversion rates are now really because we've got all of these leads, and our revenue is suffering. So ultimately, it's just a really KPI of measuring success.
What Rich said. But just to add, if you think about it, marketing qualified leads through one way or another, the traditional sense, and that pipeline, I know it's been digitized and everything, but if you track back, I'm pretty sure it's probably now over 100 years old when you actually think about the interactions that take place between that funnel. So yeah, it's going to be, I don't think it's broken. I think it's flawed, and I think it needs to change.
Businesses just need to realign the metrics that they measure. It comes down to, and every time I've consulted with a business, worked with a business, their ultimate goal and objective is revenue and growth. How they get that revenue and growth is down to us. But if I worked at a company and went, pay me X amount of money per month, my team will go away and will give you 500 leads a month, and they close none of them, they're in exactly the same position as they were 6 months prior to working with us.
I think the thing that I found with, an MQL funnel is how much it focuses, as Rich said, on the immediate sale rather than focusing on the long term, which is actually making the customer, the searcher, the user, the audience, whatever you want to call them, an advocate for the brand. So MQLs need to actually start addressing not only, how to actually get a sale, but how to actually engage with that customer in your brand's world so that they actually keep coming back.
I sort of disagree with the underlying point, but agree with what you're saying. In that I think MQLs have their place. I think that it does need to be a measurement of things that go from marketing to sales, independent of sales closing, because you need to be able to measure, is it your sales team can't close for toffee, or is it your marketing team are providing decent leads? My issue is with one letter, it's just with the Q. People don't qualify leads properly. Just going, oh, someone sent in something to us, okay, that's an MQL. No, it's not. What have you done to qualify that? You've done nothing. It's making sure that actually if we're going to send leads on, we're going to have this activity, that we're actually doing something. We're putting in place things like lead scoring to show that actually this person has engaged with us over a period of time and it has that long-lasting engagement, like Kieran says. But without just kind of throwing the baby out with the bathwater, I think we need them, but I think we do need to focus on the Q part of MQL.
Mark makes a valid point there. It goes back to that disconnect between the KPIs. I agree. I think marketers also need to be measured on qualified leads. But where we go wrong is when we create a lead or an MQL, we pass it to sales, expecting that lead to be sales ready. And 99% of people that we generate are not in the buying cycle at that point in time. Just because we've acquired a name or a phone number or an email address doesn't necessarily mean that that person is now ready to be passed to a salesperson. We've got to fill in that bit in the middle and nurture and grow that prospect into a sales ready lead. Where it goes wrong is ultimately there is that disconnect. So marketers are focused on that volume, that number, and sales are focused on that end point. But we often forget that middle part.
That does bring me to a question that I'm sure a lot of marketing leaders are going to be thinking at this point. How do we generate first-party data? How do we run email campaigns if we haven't generated data from this kind of thing? How do we survive the phase out of cookies?
For a start, don't send the email. I think we discussed this in a previous podcast. Unless you're actually providing value, don't send it. It's a waste of time. And that's how we survive the death of the cookie if Google ever get around to it. It's been postponed God knows how many times already. Make sure you're providing valuable content. If you're providing something that gives people value, it helps them solve a pain point. It helps them solve a problem they are having in their life. They're going to interact with you still. They're going to provide you with that first-party data through forms or whatever. Make sure you're collecting it directly on your site. If you've got clever things that can work, so you can do dynamic forms where if you recognize you already have data for a person, it gives you a different question, that kind of thing. To provide value and you will still get that content. You will still get that data from people.
When we're doing this activity, let's not forget we should be customer focused. And I think often as marketers, we're guilty of going, they're just a number and we just pass them through and we lose that essence of what the customer's pain point was, their needs. All of that gets lost because we're trying to hit metrics.
And from the point of view of someone who's following up on these leads? I know that's something that falls within your remit here. What do you want to see when you receive a lead from the marketing team?
Really, for me, I am interested in the emotions and the conversations that that person wants to have or may have already had, kind of what kickstarted the customer journey with us. Keywords, content pages that they use to search for us, and obviously budget, that always helps.
We say the MQL funnel is broken. Can you give us 3 things that someone can go away right now and do to improve what they're doing and make sure they're not falling into this MQL trap?
The 3 things I would advise is, we talked about the alignment of sales and stuff like that, and that's nothing new. So we need to start thinking about what activity we're doing up front that could generate revenue, i.e. marketing needs to sell stuff at the end of the day. It's no good just creating data. 2, think about the metrics that you're measuring. As I said, you're only going to get out what you measure. So if you're measuring the wrong things, you're going to get the wrong outputs. And then 3, because this is kind of fundamental in my mindset, think about the customer. Think about that customer journey. When you're doing activity to generate an MQL, let's not rush to pass the MQL straight to a salesperson that completely then destroys the experience that customer has, because they don't want to buy anything at that point in time.
That is all we have time for today. Thank you, everyone, for listening. We hope you found some useful snippets from our session and you're able to go and put them into your own marketing strategy. We've loved that you've made it this far through the listen. We love making this content and would love it if you recommended this show to one friend that you think would enjoy listening. Thank you also to the Brew Digital team for all the research that they've put together and all the input that they've given us in today's session. Make sure to go and check out all of our past episodes. Subscribe on whatever platform you use to listen to your podcast, and we'll see you in the next one. I've been Hayden, and these are the Marketers of the Universe.